Taking a break from their military duties to go camping in the Ozarks, Air Force medic Terry Lovelace and his friend Toby ventured deep into the fastness of Devil's Den State Park for a few days of wilderness adventure.
We lived on the base, and it had nuclear-armed B-52s and a squadron of Minuteman II ICBM missiles, so security was very tight. It wasn't the kind of place where I could walk around. I've never been camping in my life, so we set a date and arranged for a 4-day weekend in June of 1977.
Little do they know that this area actually has a long history of very strange events.
Terry and Toby's terrifying tale begins soon after sundown.
We were chatting, laughing, and having a good time. The forest had been really loud with crickets and tree frogs and all the insects, and that suddenly went silent. The breeze stopped. The only noise was the fire as it crackled, and it unnerved me.
And it would become even more unnerving when the two friends see the source of this eerie silence.
On the western horizon, there was this set of 3 little stars. They were as bright as a North Star, in a perfect little triangle. Toby asked me, "Hey Terry, were those lights there before?" And the lights did a somersault. What is this thing?
Terry makes a chilling realization. What they're seeing is a craft, and even more alarming, it's coming towards them.
It dipped down with the apex clearly pointed in our direction and started this glide down. It never deviated. It was evident that it was a solid object, and it was clearly headed in our direction.
As it got closer, the men could see a large, triangular shape. It's a UFO.
I had the sense that it was moving with purpose, and that really scared me.
When you see a real, silent, massive triangle, it cannot be compared to anything else. Often, people are not quite sure what they're seeing. Is this 3 planes flying in a V formation? Is this some sort of stealth bomber? By the time it's almost on top of you, you realize this is nothing I've ever seen before.
Here we are with this thing 3,000 feet over our heads. As soon as I saw that, I felt this sensation of calm wash over me. Almost sedation. All the fear and all the anxiety that I had about the crickets going quiet and seeing this thing in the sky was all gone.
Terry and his friend are caught in a trance.
When you come in contact with an actual UFO or a being, what happens is that you feel as if you're under their control in some way.
Researchers believe that in some of these cases, the ETs themselves are suppressing people's strong emotional reactions in order to facilitate the onboard experience or prevent people from lashing out.
And Terry's harrowing experience is about to get even more personal.
A beam of light came down from underneath and from the center of the thing. It struck us. It struck my friend. It struck our tent, my car, his backpack, his cooler, and struck the campfire. It struck everything. I had the sense that it was scanning us, and then it just switched off.
Suddenly, Terry is overcome by a wave of exhaustion.
I felt like all I wanted to do was get in that tent and close my eyes. And that's what we did. I didn't bother to undress or take off my boots. The second my head hit that inflatable pillow, I was out.
Clearly, there is some sort of field they are emanating that sedates these people.
When Terry wakes up in his tent hours later, the horror of the unknown takes hold.
It must have been about an hour before dawn. I didn't have my wits about me. I was just not with it. I saw lights through the canvas of the tent. These lights were extremely bright. They would flash for a millisecond, light up the tent like crazy. And I sat up, and I realized that I was in pain. The next thing I noticed was that my boots had been unlaced, and that unnerved me. I turned my attention to my friend, who's on his knees, looking out of this flap in the tent. He had tracks of tears down the side of his face.
Terry's living nightmare is about to crash into reality.
So I got to my knees, and I looked out of the flap of the tent, and I could see that this had descended. It's now just 30 feet over this meadow, and it was absolutely enormous. I would estimate it's a city block long on each leg of the triangle, and probably 5 stories deep.
This was not a small craft. This craft was several blocks wide, huge. This is the type of encounter where we can throw out any explanations of misperception. You cannot misperceive something that you are feet away from.
And now, an already horrified Terry is left facing another strange vision, torn from a nightmare.
It's difficult to describe, but that's what I saw. They were walking around kind of like tourists. They're just looking around. It was frightening. And there were a dozen, and they were all paired up in 2s and 3s. I thought they were children. They were all about 3.5 feet tall. They were all gray. I said, Toby, man, what are these kids doing out here in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere?
In a lot of alien abduction stories, there are these types of aliens that are described as the Greys.
The Greys are the most notorious of the many beings that have plagued experiencers.
This does seem unusual to witness that many gray aliens all in one pack.
And he said, Terry, man, those ain't no little kids. Look at them. They're not human beings. Don't you remember? They took us and they hurt us.
And that's when Terry's memories of being taken come rushing back.
I had a memory of being inside the ship. All the fear came flooding back. I was just absolutely frightened out of my wits.
Nothing can prepare a person for physical contact with an extraterrestrial being or craft. It is a reality-shattering experience.
There are many who have seen things or have experienced things that they can't explain.
It completely changes your life.
It's a big epiphany to realize that we're not the be-all, end-all.
This is the first thing they remember when they wake up, the last thing they remember when they go to sleep.
All the fear came flooding back. I was scared to death.
For Terry Lovelace, a camping trip turns into a UFO abduction nightmare when he finds himself aboard an alien craft.
Suddenly, I was standing, I was holding all of my clothing and my boots, and I couldn't move. I was completely frozen, except for my eyes. It was so big that I could barely make out figures at the far end. I'm scared to death, but I want to know where I'm at. It was weird because the place was just incredibly brightly lit, and I think maybe that's why we got burned. I saw the little gray guys running around. I don't think that those are living sentient beings like you and I. I think there's some combination of artificial intelligence and quantum computing and maybe some biological material.
Then, Terry comes face to face with another terrifying entity.
This was the most frightening thing that I saw. He was about 6 foot tall, wearing a gray garment that had a V-neck to it. And he had hardly any ears to speak of, just 2 nostrils, a very small slit for a mouth. And his eyes were all black. He turns his head, and we locked eyes. And what radiated back from his eyes was not any mercy or empathy, it was just raw intellect. And I felt so inferior.
This seems very similar to a lot of the accounts that I've heard. You find yourself in a very brightly lit room and you see those beings around you.
In an instant, he knew me, he knew my wife, he knew my secrets, he knew my dreams, my ambitions. It felt like the biggest invasion of privacy I'd ever experienced in my life.
These beings are taking over your free will, which is pretty scary.
The little gray guys came and they got me next. And I am like a statue. I have my clothing in my hand, but I can't move. Somehow I was gliding. I wasn't walking, I was gliding. And I went down this corridor. At the end of this long hallway, there were tubes big enough to accommodate a human being. That scared me to the point where I thought I was going to faint, but I didn't. Wish I had, you know? And we got to this room, and there was a medical table.
Still with no control over his body, Terry's next horrifying memory is in an alien operating gallery.
I'm on this table, and they're doing something to my lower back, and whatever they were doing hurt. And the pain that I experienced was sharp, like a cutting. I'm screaming as loud as I can, and I can't hear myself. This thing stops and turns its head in my direction.
Once again, Terry feels this alien creature enter his mind.
He said, "Why are you screaming? You know we take you back, now stop screaming." And he reached over and tapped me on the forehead, and I was out.
This is really an odyssey. Terry carries literally all the hallmarks of a classic and unique contact encounter.
But I'm surprised that he was able to remember the pain, because normally that is the part that we block completely out of our consciousness.
Terry's case has some very common aspects. The almost sedated feeling when you should be running in fear from this craft and these beings. Missing time, waking up feeling anxious, frightened. Your clothes are not on properly.
I was unconscious again until I saw the lights through the tent, and that's when I woke up.